In a forgotten town, swallowed by an endless forest, an old house stood, rotting, waiting. The locals called it the Whispering House, a name they feared to speak too loudly. They whispered of ghostly sounds, cries and murmurs that haunted the night. Some saw shadows in its windows, others heard voices carried on the wind. No one dared approach, and those who did were never the same. But Lily? She laughed at ghost stories. Her eyes gleamed with excitement, scrolling through tales of the Whispering House. Young, fearless, and hungry for thrills, Lily Vlogger haunted places for her fans. The screen glowed with eerie photos, pulling her deeper into the mystery. Under a veiled moon, Lily packed her gear, her heart racing with anticipation. Her silhouette vanished into the night, chasing a story she didn't understand. She walked alone, the forest's hum fading, swallowed by an unnatural silence. The trees seemed to watch, their branches clawing at the starless sky. The house emerged, its broken frame a skeleton under the moon's pale glow. Her breath caught, eyes wide, as the house's shadow loomed over her. Her hand trembled, the house exhaling a warning she ignored. The door groaned open, revealing a void that seemed to breathe. A cold draft hit her, laced with decay and a faint, metallic tang. Her face tightened, just dancing in the beam of her flashlight. Lily turned on her camera, her voice steadying. Let's see what's inside. The lens captured darkness, her shaky breath echoing in the silence. The air grew thick, heavy, as if the house held its breath. Each step crunched, the floorboards groaning like a living thing. Her flashlight flickered, revealing decay, peeling walls, shattered memories. The house sighed, its walls creaking with a soft, eerie rhythm. A whisper grazed her ear, cold and intimate, stopping her dead. Drawn forward, she entered a small room, the air pulsing with dread. The whispers swelled, circling her, sourceless, inescapable. Is someone there? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The camera flickered, static tearing through her view of the dark. The screen warped, glitching, as if something was clawing through. The door slammed shut, the sound shattering the silence. She pounded on the door, her screams swallowed by the house's hunger. A giggle echoed, twisted, far away, and utterly wrong. The whispers became words, chilling her soul. Stay with us, forever. Her mind frayed, her name slipping like sand through her fingers. Visions flooded her, pale hands, melting faces, whispers inside her skull. The camera fell, clattering, its lens still watching her unravel. The whispers turned to screams, tearing through her mind. Her strength failed. She collapsed, dust rising around her. From the floor, it recorded her empty stare as shadows closed in. The flashlight died. The shadows slithered closer, their whispers plunging her into absolute darkness. In the void, the camera caught her, standing, smiling, her eyes hollow. A faint image lingered, her smile, unnatural, eternal. Morning came, and her camera lay outside, abandoned in the dirt. They watched the footage, static, until one frame froze their blood. Words flickered on the screen. Stay, you belong here. Days later, another vlogger followed her path, chasing the same thrill. A whisper drifted through the trees, soft, beckoning, alive. The house loomed in the lens, its windows like eyes that never blinked. The door creaked open, inviting him into its depths. His hand shook, the camcorder catching his first step into the trap. A cold wind blew from within, unnatural, against all reason. The lens trembled, capturing a darkness that seemed to move. A whisper brushed his ear, too close, too real. His finger froze on the button, the whisper clinging to his skin. Hello? Who's there? He called, trying to sound brave. His eyes searched the dark, the whisper now inside his head. A voice answered, not human, not from this world. The screen tore apart, static screaming as something broke through. Voices filled his mind, not around him, but within. The camera fell, its lens catching his final moments. The wreck light pulsed, his reflection fading into the house's embrace. On the edge of a forgotten town, quiet rain fell on crumbling streets. Daniel walked slowly, water dripping from his coat, toward a girl beneath a flickering yellow light. She turned, a gentle smile, dress rippling like velvet wine in the wind and rain. "Eliza," she breathed, her voice drifting between raindrops like smoke. Daniel spoke under flickering light. Eliza nodded, untouched by rain. The cafe flickered with candlelight, safe yet strange, as if time inside bent differently. Their shadows danced, though Eliza's flickered offbeat, not quite hers. She stared, unmoving, unblinking, smoke weaving through candlelight across her gaze. Within drifting smoke, her eye held no blink, only the reflection of a fire that didn't warm. A drop of wax burned his skin. The flame blinked, the room shivered. "Only when it rains," she mouthed, and the candle flared as if startled. Rain dripped onto her hand, but her skin didn't react. Like porcelain, Daniel looked away, light flickering across his face, like something unseen breathing nearby. She smiled, and her shadow smiled differently, disconnected, late. The clock ticked once more, then stopped. A drop of rain from the ceiling tapped its glass like a signal. A gust lifted the curtain. Something passed beyond the glass. Fast, vague. A cold draft crept in. Daniel shivered, but Eliza didn't blink, untouched, unbothered. She rose, a chair groaned. One candle blinked out as if afraid to follow. The air thickened. Her shadow lengthened unnaturally, stretching toward Daniel. With each step, the world blurred. Streetlights winked out behind them, and the rain grew quieter. The street lamp burst in sparks, but Eliza didn't flinch beneath the falling fire. Her words floated forward on the wind, as if not meant to reach him whole. He chuckled, but the sound was swallowed by wind. "Not for me," she whispered, and even the rain paused to listen. Lightning revealed the station. Vines coiled over rust. Thunder followed, close, heavy. The gate opened on its own, and even the rain seemed to part around her. A bulb burst nearby, as if the place rejected light. Inside, silence lived thick, complete, and hungry. His breath fogged the air. The dark pressed close, watching, waiting. She vanished, not walked away, just gone, like smoke into stone. "Eliza," he called. Only echoes returned, twisted, delayed, and wrong. Dust stirred. A photo appeared, aged and wet, yet her face was just as he saw it tonight. He stared, the shaking light painted moving shadows across his face. The door creaked open, exhaling darkness that smothered the rain behind him. "Don't go further," whispered the dark, thick as fog and just as near. Behind him, she hovered, hair drifting in still air. Her feet dangled, her shadow bled out, shape shifting in the dark. Her eyes glowed, icy blue, reflecting lightning that hadn't yet struck. She floated forward. The ground cracked beneath him, drawn toward her. "He left me," echoed inside his skull, her lips unmoving, her eyes alight. Her voice fractured, a chorus in the wind, crawling the walls like roots. "And you won't leave," she hissed, breath colder than winter itself. Her grin cracked audibly, fissures crawling across her cheeks with each twitch. Beneath cracked skin, black veins writhed like trapped insects beneath frost. The light above died as he fell, darkness rushing in with the crash. The floor cracked beneath him like a waiting mouth. The light blinked, imprinting a ghost flash on his vision. No windows, no light, no rain. Only walls, smooth, silent, and closing. Her neck twisted slowly, vertebrae clicking. Her hair lifted, suspended in invisible current. "Stay," she hissed, her voice scraping like leaves on bone from everywhere. The ceiling warped inward, shadows twisted upward, yet Eliza cast one from below. He ran, but the halls bent like breathing tunnels, looping him into himself. The lights pulsed with rhythm, walls beat like lungs. "There's no leaving," she sang, and something hurt her. His shadow was no longer his. Claws grew, stretching beyond him. He prayed, but the words folded inward. The light curled in like a closing fist. Lights popped softly, and with each burst, the dark deepened like a descending level. Nothing. Then, steps. Slow, circling, climbing walls like centipedes. Cold breath brushed his nape, and left behind prints of something unseen. "You shouldn't have followed," she breathed, and the wall ahead shivered. Her face cracked and flaked, skin falling to dust before it landed. Her eyes opened into voids, not metaphor, but gravity. Nothing, no breath, no sound, not even silence, just absence. A train called from another lifetime, distant, haunted, metallic. Rain returned. The cafe flickered gently. Eliza sat, untouched by the night. She watched the chair, and its shadow watched her back. The cushion dipped. A drop fell and vanished before the splash. Through the rain-blurred window, someone paused, déjà vu blooming on their face. Frost bloomed on the glass, and a faint handprint formed. The candle flickered, stabilizing just enough to reveal. A faint silhouette sat, flickered, and vanished. Some say he never really left.
My name is Brian. I'm 26 years old, and I used to work security for an agency that handled less than usual assignments. You know those abandoned buildings the city never bothers to tear down? Some of them still need people to watch them. Not for break-ins, more like containment. Last year, I got assigned to an old hospital on the outskirts of town, St. Elore Memorial. It was shut down in 1996 after a fire in the West Wing. Ever since, it's just been sitting there, rotting. My shift was simple, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Walk the halls once every hour. Radio in. Don't enter the basement. Don't engage with anything you hear. That's what my supervisor told me. No humor. No explanation. Just rules. Night 1 was uneventful. Dust. Broken glass. Faded wallpaper. The usual. I stayed out of the basement like they said. Thought it was all urban legend stuff. Overgrown psych ward. Maybe. Who knows? But night 3, that's when it started. I was walking the third floor hallway when I saw it. A wheelchair, slowly rolling across the corridor by itself. No slope, no wind, just rolling. I stood still, didn't breathe. It stopped halfway through, then turned to face me. I backed away, heart racing, and radioed it. No response. I was alone, completely alone. Later that night, I passed by the pediatrics wing. All the doors had been boarded shut, except one, room 318. It was open a crack, just wide enough to see inside. There were drawings on the wall, childish scribbles, crayons, stick figures with no faces. And in the center of the room was a hospital bed, still intact, with indentations on the mattress, like someone had just gotten up. I didn't go in. By night 5, I started hearing music, not over the radio, not from outside. Lullabies, soft and slow, like an old music box coming from the second floor. I followed it to the maternity ward. The sound stopped as soon as I stepped in, but the cribs were still there, and one of them was rocking, gently, back and forth. I walked toward it, flashlight shaking, and I swear I heard breathing. Shallow, raspy, coming from inside the crib, but when I shined the light, it was empty. That night, I broke a rule. I went to the basement. The door was locked, but the key was on my ring. I don't know why I did it. Curiosity? Stupidity? The air changed as soon as I stepped down. It was heavy. Vet. The walls were damp, and there were scratches everywhere. Claw marks. Deep gouges along the walls and floor. There were doors with no handles. Room numbers carved instead of printed. 001, 002, 003. I stopped at room 006. There was something behind it. I could feel it. And then I heard it, knocking, from the inside. Slow, steady, then a voice. A whisper. Don't leave me here. I ran. That was my last shift. When I showed up the next night, a different guard was already there. He looked at me like I was dead. I thought you quit, he said. I told him I was scheduled. He said my supervisor had filed a termination report for me the night before. Said I walked into the basement and never came back. I showed them my footage, my radio logs. They were all blank. No audio, no video, as if I was never there. That hospital still stands. And sometimes when I drive past it on cold, quiet nights, I swear I hear that same music box tune, faintly, from underground. The RMS Queen Mary was one of the most magnificent ships of the 20th century. a floating palace that carried the rich and famous across the Atlantic. But when the world was at war, it was transformed into a military transport vessel, nicknamed the Gray Ghost. After the war, it was retired and turned into a hotel and museum, docked in Long Beach, California. Since then, guests and staff alike have reported strange occurrences, flickering lights, cold spots, and the sound of footsteps when no one is around. But it wasn't just the whispers of the supernatural that surrounded the Queen Mary. The ship's history was marred by tragedy. In its years of service, hundreds of people died aboard the ship, some from accidents, others from illness, and some from tragic events that remain shrouded in mystery. This is the story of one such incident, a ghostly encounter that continues to haunt those who dare to stay aboard the Queen Mary. It was in 1966 when Michael, a young man working on board the ship as part of the maintenance crew, had his first eerie experience. He had always heard stories about the ship being haunted, but dismissed them as superstitions. After all, he was working in the engine room, far from the haunted areas of the ship. One night, as he was finishing up his shift in the bowels of the ship, he noticed something strange. A cold breeze, an unnatural chill, swept through the otherwise stuffy engine room. He looked around, his eyes scanning the machinery that hummed quietly in the background. He could have sworn he saw a figure out of the corner of his eye, a shadow moving quickly across the room. But when he turned to look, there was nothing there. Shaking it off, he continued his work. But then he heard it. Footsteps, heavy footsteps, walking slowly behind him. His heart raced as he turned around, but again, the room was empty. He wasn't alone. He couldn't see them, but he could feel them. And the footsteps, they weren't stopping. Michael rushed to finish his work, trying to ignore the creeping sense of dread that was settling in his chest. The next night, Michael returned, this time determined to prove to himself that it was just his imagination. But when he entered the engine room, the temperature had dropped again. The lights flickered ominously, casting long shadows on the walls. This time, he wasn't alone. He could feel it, a presence in the room with him, something watching him from the darkness. As he worked, the sound of someone breathing behind him was unmistakable, just over his shoulder, hot and heavy. He turned around, but there was no one there. Panic began to set in as the pressure in the room seemed to build. His flashlight flickered and went out. In the pitch dark, Michael stood frozen, trying to gather his bearings. Then, out of nowhere, the loud sound of clanging metal echoed through the room. It was as if someone had slammed a heavy metal door, but Michael was certain he was alone. He felt an icy hand brush against his neck. His body tensed, and without thinking, he bolted out of the engine room, his heart pounding in his chest. The strange occurrences didn't stop for Michael. His encounters became more frequent, and he wasn't the only one. Other crew members started reporting similar experiences. Strange noises, cold spots, the sound of footsteps, and even sightings of shadowy figures in hallways. It wasn't long before rumors started circulating about a woman's ghost haunting the ship. The legend of the Lady in White was born, an apparition seen by multiple crew members who had worked late hours, usually near the ship's engine room. But the truth of who this ghost was remained a mystery. Some said she was a passenger who had died aboard the ship during a voyage, while others speculated that she was a woman who had tragically taken her life on board. One night, Michael could take no more. He decided to confront the mystery head-on. He had heard about an old passage on the ship, an area off-limits to the crew. It was known as the Haunted Corridor, where the faint sound of a woman's crying had been heard late at night. Michael wanted to find out if the rumors were true. With his flashlight in hand, Michael ventured down the dark hallway, his footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. The ship creaked and groaned as if it were alive, but the silence was deafening. He passed the first few rooms and noticed a faint, melodic sound in the distance. It sounded like a lullaby played on an old piano. The music was faint, but it was unmistakable. As he walked further down the corridor, the sound grew louder and his heart began to race. The air was thick, as if the walls themselves were closing in. At the end of the hall, Michael could see it, a faint glow coming from a room. His hands trembled as he approached the door. When he opened it, the light flickered, and he saw her. A woman in a white dress, sitting on an old wooden rocking chair, her back turned to him. Her hair was long and dark, cascading down her back, but her face was hidden. The lullaby continued to play, even though there was no piano in sight. Terrified, Michael stepped closer. "Excuse me, are you okay?" he asked, his voice shaking. The woman's head slowly turned, revealing a hollow, lifeless face. Her eyes were completely black, as if her soul had been swallowed by the darkness. Before Michael could react, the door slammed shut behind him. He was trapped. The rocking chair continued to move, faster now, and the woman's whispering voice filled the room. "You shouldn't have come here. You should leave." The temperature in the room dropped so drastically that Michael could see his heart. The woman's voice was chilling, like ice scraping across metal. She rose from the chair, her movements jerky, unnatural. Michael backed away toward the door, but it wouldn't open. His heart was pounding in his chest as he looked at the woman, who now stood inches away from him. Her mouth opened wide, but instead of a scream, a gust of wind swept through the room, knocking him to the ground. In that moment, Michael felt a sharp pain in his chest, like something was gripping his heart, squeezing the life out of him. His vision blurred as he gasped for air. And just as suddenly as the pressure had appeared, it was gone. The door to the room burst open, and Michael scrambled to his feet, running down the hallway as fast as he could. When he finally made it back to the main deck, the ship was silent once again. The woman, the lullaby, the whispers, they were gone. But Michael never spoke about what happened. He couldn't. He left the ship that night and never returned. The Queen Mary continued to sit in the harbor, a place where some say the dead never leave, waiting for their next visitor to answer their call. Some say that the woman in white is still aboard the ship, waiting for someone to listen. And others say she's still looking for the one person who can help her escape the curse. If you ever visit the Queen Mary, be careful where you walk, because some ghosts don't want to be found until you find them.
In an old, decaying mansion on the outskirts of a forgotten town, there were whispers of strange occurrences. The house had stood abandoned for decades, yet every time someone dared to enter, they reported seeing dolls, dozens of them, all scattered throughout the rooms. But the most terrifying part wasn't the dolls themselves. It was that they were always watching. And when the town folk spoke of it, they mentioned something far worse than the dolls. They spoke of the dolls beneath the floor. No one dared to speak of what happened to those who tried to dig them up. Henry, an antiques dealer, had heard the rumors for years. He'd never believed them, of course. Dolls? Just old children's toys. But when a wealthy client offered him a handsome price to find rare items in the mansion, he couldn't resist. The mansion, long abandoned and overgrown with ivy, looked innocent enough from the outside. Inside, dust covered the furniture, but there was something unsettling about the silence. As he explored the empty halls, he found what he was looking for. Dozens of porcelain dolls lined the shelves of the dusty room, their eyes lifeless but too lifelike. It was as though they were waiting for something. But as he moved closer to examine one, a strange sensation washed over him, a cold shiver running down his spine. The air smelled of something rotten, but Henry was too focused on the dolls to notice it first. He reached out to touch one. The eyes of the doll seemed to follow his every move. As Henry rummaged through the house, he found a trapdoor beneath a rug in the corner of the room. Curiosity overtook him. He pulled the trapdoor open, revealing a dark, narrow staircase leading down into the basement. The air in the basement was thick with decay. The walls were lined with even more dolls, but these were different, worn, tattered, some were missing limbs. Their porcelain faces cracked, but still, their eyes seemed to stare back at him with a horrifying intensity. The most disturbing thing, however, was that beneath them, in the floorboards themselves, something was moving. Henry felt a sudden urge to dig, as if something was compelling him to reach deeper, to uncover whatever was hidden beneath the floor. The wooden planks were warped, cracked and worn, but the sound of something scraping underneath drove him to continue. He pried up the floorboards, and as they creaked open, he saw it. Dolls, dozens of them, entombed beneath the floor, their bodies crammed into a tight space, their faces frozen in expressions of horror. But these dolls, they weren't just dolls. The eyes moved, the mouths twitched, and the air began to vibrate with a low, mournful hum. A voice, deep and echoing, seemed to come from within the floorboards, as if the dolls themselves were speaking to him. "Let's out." Before he could react, the ground beneath him shuddered. The dolls' eyes blinked open fully. Their heads turned, one by one, following him with an unsettling, synchronized movement. Henry stumbled back, heart pounding, but his feet were rooted to the floor. He felt oppressed. Henry woke, but it wasn't the world he had known. He was no longer on the cold floor of the basement. Instead, he found himself surrounded by dolls, hundreds of them, all lifeless once more, their eyes closed, waiting for the next unwitting soul. A whisper brushed against his ear, just barely audible, "You belong to us now." It wasn't just the dolls that moved. Henry's limbs twitched. He reached up to his face, and in the reflection of a nearby, cracked mirror, he saw it, the horrifying truth. He was becoming one of them, his body slowly changing into porcelain, the coldness creeping into his bones. His limbs stiffened, his skin turned pale and lifeless, his mouth barely able to form words. And then, the voice again, louder this time, "Now you will watch." Evelyn woke up the next morning in her nearby house, unaware of the horrific events that had unfolded in the mansion. But she couldn't ignore the strange feeling that something was wrong. She looked outside, and as she gazed across the hill, she saw it, the dolls, hundreds of them, standing perfectly still in the windows of the mansion. The wind whispered softly through the trees, and with it, she heard a faint voice, distant and haunting. "Let me out." The dolls wait, always waiting, hungry for new souls. And every time someone enters the house, the same thing happens. They join the collection. The floorboards shift, and the dolls reach up, pulling them into the depths, trapping them within the walls for eternity. The town will never speak of it, but the whispers can still be heard in the wind, begging for release. And once you've entered, you will never leave.
The storm raged as Dr. Robert Finch and his son, Casey, received a late-night call from Sheriff Harris. A body had been found in the woods. No ID, no signs of struggle. It was just wrong. At the morgue, the woman on the table was pale and unmarked, almost too perfect. Robert's experienced hands went to work, but something felt off. The body was unusually warm, too pristine for a corpse found in the elements. "It's as if she's been embalmed," Robert murmured, studying her flawless skin and undisturbed organs. "But there's no embalming fluid in her system." Casey frowned. "What does that mean? What happened to her?" Robert's brow furrowed. "We need to know who she is." The sheriff arrived with no new details. "No ID, no missing person reports," Harris said, shrugging. "We're stuck. Let me know if you find anything." But before they could finish the autopsy, the body shifted. Amelia Shaw's hand moved, just slightly, but it was enough. The body twitched again and Robert's focus shifted. Something unnatural was happening. The organs seemed unnaturally perfect. No decomposition, no decay. The body wasn't behaving as it should. "She's not dead?" Casey asked, his voice thick with disbelief. "I don't know," Robert said, his stomach tightening. "But there's something wrong with her. Something we're missing. Gah!" When they turned the body over, they saw a small, peculiar mark on her back. Something like a burn or a symbol, but too deliberate to be accidental. Casey touched it. The skin was unnaturally warm. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. As Robert examined the mark, the lights flickered. Robert stepped back. "We're not alone." Before Casey could react, the room plunged into darkness. The whispers grew louder, the temperature plummeting. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the lights returned. Amelia Shaw's body was gone. Back at the sheriff's office, Robert, Casey, and Harris tried to make sense of what had just happened. Harris spoke up, his voice low. "There have been rumors for years. People gone missing, bodies found, but not dead. Some come back different, not right. Some disappear without a trace." Robert's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, come back different?" Harris hesitated. "I've heard talk of a cult, something tied to the woods. They believe in bringing people back, using them for something. A vessel. They might have tried it with her." Casey looked horrified. "A cult? You mean to tell me there's some group out here trying to bring people back to life?" "Not life. Not really," Robert murmured. "A vessel. Amelia Shaw was chosen for something. Something bigger." With no other leads, Robert insisted they investigate the old church in the hills, the place where the cult had allegedly been seen. The church was abandoned, overrun with ivy and shadowed by the night. The air felt wrong, heavy as they stepped inside. The altar was covered in cloths, and strange symbols had been drawn on the floor in chalk. "That's the same symbol from the morgue," Robert said, kneeling down to study it. "It's some kind of ritual, something dark." They moved through the church cautiously, but in the back corner, a trapdoor appeared, hidden beneath debris. They pried it open, revealing a narrow staircase leading into the depths below. Robert's flashlight cut through the darkness as they descended into a vast stone chamber. Shelves lined the walls, filled with jars and bones. The air was thick, with the smell of decay and something else, something ancient. At the center of the room, Amelia Shaw lay on an altar, her body twisted and unnatural, surrounded by candles. But there was something else. A presence in the room. The shadows felt alive, as though they were watching them. "We're too late," Robert whispered. "She's a vessel. This was their goal." Suddenly, the body twitched again. The air turned frigid. The room trembled. Amelia Shaw's eyes snapped open, black, empty, and she rose, her body jerking unnaturally. A low growl rumbled from her chest. "She's not alive," Casey said, his voice shaking. "What's happening?" "Stay back," Robert yelled, but it was too late. Amelia lunged, and Robert fired his gun. The bullet struck her in the chest, but she didn't flinch. She didn't slow. "Damn it," Robert shouted. "We're not going to win this with a gun." The shadow in the room grew, its shape shifting and contorting until it was a massive, dark presence. It was more than a spirit. It was an ancient force, something tied to the ritual they had discovered. "Get back!" Robert shouted, but Amelia's form moved with terrifying speed, grabbing Casey by the shoulder. The shadows seemed to grow, swallowing the light, as if the darkness itself was alive. Robert grabbed Casey, pulling him away from the altar. "We need to stop this, now." The room trembled. Robert rushed to the altar, grabbing the book that had been left behind, the book with the symbols. He quickly flipped through its pages, scanning for the chant that could undo this curse. "Dad," Casey cried, "we can't fight this thing. It's too strong." But Robert was already chanting the words from the book, his voice rising above the chaos. The air seemed to pulse with energy, and the shadows began to pull back, retreating from the light. The temperature in the room dropped even further, but Robert pressed on. With each word, the presence in the room seemed to weaken, the shadows growing thinner, more distant. Finally, with a final, resounding chant, the darkness receded. The room went silent, save for the distant rumble of thunder outside. Amelia Shaw's body collapsed onto the altar, lifeless once more. The shadow vanished, leaving only the cold, empty room. Robert and Casey stood in the chamber, panting, their bodies trembling from the intensity of what had just occurred. The book lay open on the altar, the symbols still glowing faintly in the dim light. "We did it," Casey said, his voice shaking. "But what was that? What did we just stop?" Robert ran a hand through his hair, exhaustion weighing heavily on him. "We stopped a ritual that could have opened a door to something much worse." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of what had happened sinking in. "How do we stop it from coming back?" Casey asked. Robert looked down at the book, his expression grim. "I don't know, but we've closed the door for now, and if we're lucky, it will stay that way." But as they turned to leave the room, the whisper came again, soft, distant, but unmistakable. Robert froze. The air in the room shifted once more, a coldness creeping back into his bones. Amelia Shaw's body remained still, but the darkness never fully left. As they made their way back to the surface, Robert's thoughts lingered on the land and on the words he had heard. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had only postponed the inevitable. The town had been built on secrets, on rituals, and the darkness that had been waiting for centuries had only been momentarily contained. And in the back of his mind, he knew it would come back. It always did. Under the light of a new moon, the clouds were as thin as gauze. The dirt road leading into the forest was so quiet that the sound of dry leaves sounded like bones scraping against each other. Alex walked ahead, the flashlight hanging from his backpack swaying, cutting a thin line of light through the fog. Maya followed closely behind, her hands cold, each step like she had to be pulled out of the mud. Leo walked behind, tripod and camera bag slung over his shoulder, his eyes deep but alert, scanning the surroundings like a sentry, silently counting his breaths to keep calm. They had read the worn-out diary, an anonymous priest written in blotchy reddish-brown ink about a village forgotten because of its debt to shadows. Maya stopped abruptly, grabbing Alex's sleeve. "Do you feel it? Like someone hungry?" Alex laughed, reassuringly in a light voice.
I don't know, guys. I'm getting a really bad feeling
Perfect
about
for a
this.
Halloween video. He raised the camera, panning around. Fog, trees, darkness. The lens caught a few specks of dust that shone like fireflies, or other things, small and staring back. Then the village appeared without warning, without a single light, without a puff of smoke. Only the air was heavy as a stone pressing on the chest. In front of the village gate, a rickety sign hung by a rusty string. Alex brought the flashlight closer. Burned black words were etched into the wood. "The unharvested shadows will find the curious." Maya took a step back. Alex smiled again, but his eyes were trembling. He pushed the gate open. The hinges made a long, screeching sound, like someone sucking in a breath to contain the pain. Inside, the village streets were filled with mud and leaves. The doors were half open, like cave entrances. Alex led the group into the first house, its wooden floors creaking. The musty smell mixed with the smell of burning incense crept into Maya's nose, making her cough slightly. On the table, an overturned earthenware bowl still lay. Alex flipped the bowl over. Below was a black and white photograph, blurry and cracked. A group of people in brown shirts, holding sickles, standing in the middle of a rice field that had been harvested to the stump. Leaving the house, they walked deeper. Every strange sound began to creep around them, light footsteps behind them. But when they turned around, there was only mist. Sighs from the abandoned well, whispers mixed in the wind, like many voices overlapping. Not harvested yet. Alex leaned into each door, panting with hunting instinct. Blurred figures began to touch the edges of the frame, just the corners of eyes. But Maya
Alex,
could clearly
stop!
see a pair of eyes red as burning coals peering through. She grabbed Alex's hand so hard it hurt. Alex, stop. It's a trap. Alex stubbornly. I just need a few more shots. Suddenly, a window banged as if someone had crashed into it. All three spun. Behind the cracked glass, a face appeared for a moment. Hollow, eyes two dark red holes, mouth open but making no sound, then suddenly gone. Alex dropped the camera to the floor, the indicator lights still flashing. They gathered their things and ran to the middle of the village. There, a small square led into many crisscrossing alleys. Houses on both sides changed positions. Windows seemed to turn to watch them. Leo counted his steps, but the count kept slipping away, as if someone had broken the numbers in his head. A hand reached out from the void and grabbed Leo's wrist. Leo jerked, jumped back, the other hand flailing reflexively, leaving 5 long purple marks on his skin, like the marks of fingers without flesh. They were lost in a corridor, in the village. Maya closed her eyes, took a deep breath, trying to find a beat other than her own. And she heard it. Under her feet, in the ground, something moving. Like many hands crawling, searching for calves, ankles. Don't stand still, Maya whispered. They can pull if we stand still. They continued walking, and then the corridor suddenly opened in front of a small church, the bell tower broken in half, the clock face frozen at 3:13. Alex pushed the door. The smell of burnt incense came like a wave. On the altar, portraits were pasted on top of each other. Peasant faces, dark eyes, gentle but deep down were tired and resentful. Some of the photos were torn, revealing behind them were old words. Called to pay rice tax, didn't return. Strange disease after harvest. Missing in the well. The paper shook even though there was no wind. A dry bell rang from the broken tower, not knowing who had rung it. The candles in the church flickered, then flared up a little before going out. Maya held her head. They're coming! Leo grabbed Alex's shoulder. Go, now! But the crescent moon suddenly rushed out from behind the clouds, casting silver light on the broken window. And as the moonlight touched the church floor, from the dark corners, figures began to step out. A figure approached Alex, reaching out to touch his collar. He was lifted, his feet kicking into the air, a scream stuck in his throat as if swallowed by the thick air. The smell of corpses and incense smoke mixed with the smell of burning straw lingered around. Alex was mumbling, his hands flailing. Leo let out a low growl, lunged forward, grabbed Alex's stomach, and pulled him back. He felt those dry, scratched fingers dig into Alex's skin like hooks. He pulled hard. Alex's body fell into Leo's hands like a sandbag, both of them rolling down the church steps. Maya, still holding her head, suddenly opened her eyes, grabbed the metal bracelet, put it on Alex's wrist, her hands trembling. "Alex, the number, the document in the diary." Alex gasped. He rummaged through his backpack and pulled out a piece of paper marked with a marker. On it, under the phrase, "Do not call their names," there was a short, hastily written and ugly verse. "The shadow demands its share. The person returns the favor. The black fire shines, the boundary opens. When the moon is a scythe, place the ring between the shadow and the bone. When the..." Maya recited in a whisper. She placed the Jiamchio ring in the space between the three people and the shadows. The ring did not touch the ground. It hung there, as if tied to something invisible. A very soft crack, like a tight string being cut. A few shadows dissolved like smoke. Only their red eyes fell like upside-down fireflies, extinguished in the air. The wall cracked open like a mouth. Portraits pasted on the wall fell out, flying around in the wind that came from nowhere. Breathing. The sound of wood groaning. The sound of people screaming from the ground. The passages outside, seen through the windows, seemed to change places, retreating when someone tried to step forward, sliding like the surface of water. "Not long enough. Just hold them. A little," Maya said, her eyes not leaving the circle. Leo lifted Alex up. "Which way?" Maya closed her eyes, feeling. Everything was like a moving maze, but there was a rhythm. The rhythm of the forest. She opened her eyes, pointing towards the side door of the church. They rushed out. The circle of judgment drifted along, following Alex like a black bird. Shadows spread out from both sides of the alley. A dry hand jumped up from the ground, grabbed Alex's ankle. He almost fell. Leo bent down and hit hard. The hand shattered into cold ash. "Don't stand still," Maya reminded. The shadows rushed forward, not slow this time. The circle of judgment shook, emitting a sound like metal rubbing against stone. Maya read the awkward words again, her voice starting to break. The largest shadow, probably the shadow of the old village chief from years ago, stretched out, its eyes red like two pieces of hot iron. It touched the edge of the circle and cried out. It took a step back, just one, but enough for the three of them to break free of the encirclement, dash through the broken fence, trample on rotting leaves, and breathe in the forest air. Leo ran ahead, then Alex, Maya. Behind them, the village stretched out, trying to hold them back with the alleys sliding under their feet. The wind came. The mist in the village was whipped back like a curtain. The shadows at the edges couldn't get through, their red eyes burning, then fading like dying embers. A long, long sigh, as if the whole village were exhaling. They didn't stop until they were deep in the forest. Leo plopped down, his back against the tree trunk. His hands were shaking, but his eyes were still alert. Alex put the camera on his lap, the light still flashing. I got it, he said, unsure. Maya hugged her knees, put her chin on them, inhaled the smell of damp leaves like medicine. We're out, she whispered. Temporarily. A week later, on Halloween night, Alex sat in his rented room, the window ajar, the sound of cars in the distance like a hazy river. He turned on the camera, reviewed the footage. In the frame, the fog shimmered beautifully like an effect. The door closed by itself, the window slammed shut, the hallway seemed to stretch out. Everything was there. The circle of judgment appeared in a few frames, black like a hole in the image. There was a very light knock on the door. He looked up. No one. In the silence, a very soft sigh passed by, as if coming from the corner of the wall. Alex stood up, walked to the window, pulled the curtains. Outside on the street, people were laughing, dressing up. Cheap witch and vampire masks danced under the neon lights. When he pulled the curtains back, in the reflection on the glass, Alex saw that behind him there was not only his shadow, there was also a thin, flat, long black streak, like a scythe leaning against the corner of the room. He turned around. The corner of the room was empty. Alex thought to himself, "Stress." The phone vibrated. A message from Maya. "Are you listening tonight?" Alex was about to reply, "Listen to what?" when he heard it. In the sound of the wind seeping through the crack of the door, an old sound crept into the room. Tired but persistent. Not harvested yet. Leo texted the group, "Don't be alone. Lock the door." Alex looked up at the door lock. It was still locked. Then he looked at the floor. There were a few small black dust particles, like ash, lying in a semicircle at the threshold. The circle of the orb had fallen back at the edge of the forest that night. But here, something had left the mark of another circle. Alex opened the cupboard, looked for the priest's diary. On the last page, under the red-brown ink, there was a new line. The ink still wet, the smell of burnt incense lingering. They can't harvest the body. They will wait for the soul. He took a step back. In his mind flashed that red eye. The circle of the guardians may be temporary, but the border is real. He texted back, "Come to my place tonight. Stay. Stay." Maya replied with a moon icon. Leo replied, "I brought the rope." Alex smiled, half believing. What was the rope for? But then he remembered the moment they'd grabbed each other in the church. Perhaps that very bond was the only thing the shadow couldn't cut. Outside the window, Halloween bustled and then faded. Inside, 3 people sat side by side, candles placed around them, salt sprinkled on the threshold in a circle toward the window. "If they need a way out, give them a way out, not in," Maya whispered. Leo tied the rope around the 3 people's wrists, linking them like another circle, made of material so ordinary that even ghosts despised it. But ordinary is hard to break. Near midnight, when the new moon pierced the clouds once more, the whisper came again, clearer, as if someone was standing close to their ear. "Not harvested yet." Alex took a deep breath. "We are not your fields. You have been taken. We do not pay with us. If necessary, we will tell. We will name what happened." Maya nodded, eyes closed as if listening. Leo gently tightened the rope. The whisper receded a little, like an old man turning away, disappointed and relieved. The candlelight swayed, then stopped. At the doorway, the half-circle of black ash faded, giving way to the yellow dust particles of the street. They fell asleep as the sky neared dawn. In his dream, Alex saw that field again. The harvesters bowed their heads, the horizon blurred like a stain. But this time, when he looked up, at the edge of the field was a small black line, thin as a thread, the forest. Many years later, every Halloween season, in university clubs or video channels, the story of the Goaty Guy. It was rumored that every 100 years, the village opened its doors to harvest souls. Some people said they saw flashlights swaying in the mist. Some heard whispers like thin knives cutting through the wind. Alex, Maya, Leo did not return. They promised each other, if one day they needed to, they would go together and only together. They still heard the very light sighs in the windy night, like endless memories. But somewhere deep in the forest, the village still lay there. The houses changing places like board chess pieces. The cracked statue looked down at the dry hands crawling across the brick floor. The crescent moon occasionally turned into a scythe, licking a bright line on the warning board in front of the gate. The unharvested shadows will find the curious. And it seemed, somewhere in the shadows, a black circle still hovered, waiting for the right person to place it between the shadow and the bone. Because the border only exists when someone stands there to say, enough. I was 17 when I lived through the worst night of my life. My name is Maya, and I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, a place where the air always smells like salt and rain, and the houses are too old to keep secrets. That summer, I was babysitting for the Vaughns, a new family who had just moved into the neighborhood. Their house sat at the edge of the marsh, half sunken into moss and fog, the kind of place where even the crickets sounded muffled. Their daughter, Leela, was 6, small, quiet, and pale, with long black hair and the habit of staring too long at things that weren't there. Her parents were polite, formal people. Mr. Vaughn taught literature at the local college, and Mrs. Vaughn worked in real estate. They were always exhausted, but kind. They paid well and never came home late. That night, they were attending a work dinner across town and said I'd be back by midnight. I arrived at 6:00 sharp. Mrs. Vaughn gave me the usual rundown. Dinner's ready on the counter. Lila can watch one movie. Bed by 8:30. She mentioned the baby monitor and told me, almost offhandedly, don't go into the upstairs room. It's being renovated. She smiled after saying it, but something in that smile felt rehearsed. Everything started out normal. Leela ate her spaghetti in silence, humming softly under her breath between bites.
Leela, are you
When I
okay?
asked what she was singing, she said,
Please answer me.
"It's the song the lady upstairs taught me." I laughed. You mean your
Come on,
mom?
Leela. Why won't you play?
She shook her head. No,
Look at
the other
shadows.
one.
Don't let it know you can.
I thought it was just kid stuff. We watched a cartoon after dinner, and by 8:15, I was tucking her into bed. Her room had old wooden floors that creaked no matter how softly you walked. Above her bed, a pink nightlight shaped like a rabbit cast an eerie glow on the ceiling. She clutched her doll, a cloth thing with button eyes and tangled yarn hair, and whispered, "Good night, Miss Maya. Don't listen if she calls you." I asked, "Who?" "The lady upstairs," she said, and rolled over. By 9:00, the house was dead quiet. I was curled up on the couch, scrolling through my phone when I heard it. A faint, sharp tap, then another. It came from upstairs. I muted my phone and listened. A third tap, slower this time, followed by the groan of an old floorboard. At first, I thought it was the wind or an animal. The Vaughn's place was surrounded by trees, after all. But the sound wasn't random. It was rhythmic. Deliberate. I grabbed the flashlight from my bag and started up the stairs, my pulse pounding. The light flickered as I reached the second floor. The renovation room was at the end of the hall. The door was half open. I could see just enough through the crack to notice a long piece of red thread trailing out of the room, stretched tight, like it had been pulled across the floor and into the dark. Every nerve in my body screamed to turn around, but I stepped forward anyway. When I nudged the door open with my foot, the smell hit me first. Sweet and foul, like rotting flowers. The flashlight beam swept across the floor. There were dolls everywhere. Dozens of them. Some plastic, some handmade, some missing eyes or limbs. All propped up against the wall like an audience. In the center of the room sat a half-finished doll the size of a child, its skin made of stitched-together fabric scraps, and something else. Something that didn't look like fabric at all. Its face wasn't sewn on yet, just a blank oval of flesh-colored material with holes where eyes should have been. The red thread I'd seen outside was still attached to it, looped through a needle sticking from its shoulder. My flashlight flickered again, and then the baby monitor in my pocket hissed to life. Through static, a voice whispered, "Come upstairs, Maya." I froze. I hadn't turned the monitor on. Then, faintly, the sound of humming. A lullaby. The same tune Lila had been singing earlier. My heart stopped. I ran back to Lila's room. The monitor still crackled in my hand. I burst through the door, and she wasn't in bed. The sheets were rumpled, the doll was on the floor, and the window was wide open, the curtains blowing inward. "Leah!" I hissed. Nothing. Then from the hallway, footsteps, slow, dragging, coming closer. I locked the door, shoved a chair under the handle, and called 911. My hands were shaking so violently I dropped the phone twice. The operator told me to stay quiet and not hang up. Outside the door, the footsteps stopped. Then, scratch, scratch, something ran along the wood. Like fingernails. The knob twisted slowly, once, twice, then stopped. "Leela," I whispered. Something giggled, but it wasn't Leela's voice. The laughter was higher, raspier, almost wet. Then the whisper came again, from the other side of the door. "She likes you, Maya. She says you can stay too." The chair jerked forward. I screamed and clutched the phone to my ear. The dispatcher's voice was tinny and distant. "Officers are 3 minutes away. Stay calm." The door shook again, harder. A thud, then silence. Then I heard it, the creak of the attic hatch opening above me. I looked up just as dust rained down from the ceiling. A square of blackness yawned open, and something pale and thin began to descend. I backed into the corner, clutching the phone. The light from the rabbit nightlight flickered wildly, strobing the room. And then I saw her. A woman, if you could still call her that, crawled down from the attic. Her limbs were too long, her face a patchwork of mismatched skin, stitches like red veins across her cheeks. Her mouth was a jagged seam pulled into a grin. In one hand, she held a needle longer than my arm. "Leela," she crooned, "come finish your sister." My scream must have rattled the windows. The next thing I remember is the front door crashing open and flashlights flooding the hallway. The creature, or whatever it was gone. They found me curled in the corner clutching Lila's doll. The police searched the house. Lila was found outside, barefoot in the marsh, shivering and covered in mud. She kept whispering. She didn't like my stitches. In the upstairs room, the officers found the half-finished doll, but it wasn't there anymore when forensics came back the next morning. Only a pile of red thread and a blood-stained needle remained. The Vaughns moved away 2 weeks later. No one ever bought that house again. I never babysat again either. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear that lullaby in my head. And every so often when I check my reflection in the mirror, I swear there's a faint red line running along my jaw, like someone started stitching